Coming up on the show, the mayor of Georgia's newest city is taking his message to a national audience. We're going to talk to him about his time at the annual U.S. Conference of Mayors. Plus, how much do you need to be financially secure? Well, the new numbers may just surprise you. We'll talk about that coming up. And if you have some trees that look damaged from recent storms, we're going to try to help you figure out if they still have some life in them or not. This is The Take. Let's get it. Hello and welcome. I'm Chesley McNeil, and this is The Take, where we go above and beyond the headlines and we look at the why and how stories are impacting you and your community. We invite the experts in to give their expertise and their take on today's top stories, and we try to have just a little bit of fun as well. Let's start you off with this forecast. It's not going to be fun with this heat, I can tell you that right now. We do have an 11Alive weather impact alert for you folks, and it's going to be from Tuesday to Friday. So starting tomorrow, we'll be looking at some high heat, and the humidity starts to creep up on us as well, and so that's going to make it a little bit unbearable on the outside. You're going to need to hydrate, folks. You're going to need to limit your time outside, meaning take breaks. You're going to need to get into some air or where a fan is or something that will cool your body off just a little while before you get back outside. So know that. Today, we're looking at temperatures around 95 degrees. We will have some cumulus clouds bubbling in once we get into the daytime heating, but for much of the day, we're looking at sunshine around the forecast area. So a good looking day. It's just going to be on the hot side. Look at this. Now, our 11Alive impact alert will last through Friday. Tuesday through Friday. We will have some chances for some afternoon scattered showers and thunderstorms. If those hit, we'll be looking at those temperatures being suppressed a little bit. So even though we are forecasting a high of 98, for example, on Wednesday, if the chances for that rain gets in here, then that may be a little bit lower, but that humidity is going to be up. So that temperature will still feel like maybe the triple digits in some spots. So we'll be paying close attention to it. We're going to continue to alert you on these issues, folks, that's going on around our area. So be alert of the heat, my friends. All right, Mableton is Georgia's newest city since 2022. Over the weekend, the city's mayor had a chance to show the nation's other mayors what Mableton is all about. With us this morning is Mayor Michael Owens of the city of Mableton to talk about his experience at the annual U.S. Conference of Mayors down there in Tampa. Mayor Owens, welcome to the show.
Hey, good morning, Chesley. How are you, sir?
Doing pretty good. Tell us what it felt like to arrive at the conference.
Good. Oh, man, it was amazing. Let me tell you, there was over 200 mayors from across the country that were here at the 93rd meeting for the U.S. Conference of Mayors. It's a bipartisan group to really come together and talk about challenges and issues, but also opportunities that cities just like mine here in Mableton are having.
So you're Atlanta's newest mayor, if you will, right? Maybe as you guys have just come into taking shape in Georgia, and how does the other mayors view you as like a youngster?
Oh, first of all, in Atlanta metro area, we've had our share of new cities over the years, but in many parts of the country, new cities just don't happen. So I'm a bit of an anomaly, but this is my actually third time going to the conference, and it's just been amazing. Mayors from across the country, from Los Angeles to San Diego to Chicago, and small towns all over, have really kind of embraced me and what we're doing in Mableton. And I'll tell you what, Chesley, they are following the activity that's going on. They're following the growth of our city. And it's also, it's also funny to see that cities that have been in place for 100 years have the same challenge that we have in the city that's been in place for 2 years. When it comes to housing, issues specifically around affordable housing, transportation, jobs, what's happening with immigration. These are things that we all share, no matter how new or old a city is.
Talk to me, you talk about just sharing. Talk to me about what you share with those guys coming from Mableton.
Sure. Well, I get to bring a different perspective from this. As a new mayor of a new city, we have to dive into every single element of what cityhood truly is and the challenges that we've gone through, as you know, through court battles and Supreme Court, but also just the idea of being able to stand up things completely new. From our planning and zoning, our code enforcement department, these are all things that are net new. So as a new city, we get an opportunity to be nimble. We get to also learn from a lot of those new cities. So every single day, I've got a mayor pulling me aside and going, hey, Mayor, think about this, or here's how we handle this issue. So, it really makes the challenge of us starting a new city much easier when you have, literally a network of mayors across the country that I can call on. Hey, I've got their cell number. I can reach out to them. I don't think there's been a mayor yet that has not been gracious in offering their help. So it's been huge to us for sure. Sounds like
a good camaraderie. Do you ever get the sense that you're not taken seriously by some of the major cities?
I don't think so. I think, So it is based on population, size population. So obviously, when, Mayor Bass from Los Angeles walks in, or, even Andre Dickens, who is literally right beside us, he gives me some kudos because we're neighbors. But some of those cities that are really large, they do deal with very, very big issues. But I'll tell you, that when it comes back to Georgia, Mableton is already the 12th largest city in the state of Georgia. So, it's all relative, so some of those cities, we're really the small new kid, but in some circles, we're a fairly large city.
Any surprise takeaways that you could probably implement in Mableton?
I had a great opportunity to learn some fantastic things, but also contribute. My background in cybersecurity and national security gave me the ability to be able to lead in our cybersecurity forum that we had, talking to mayors across the country about how they can better safeguard their businesses, their employees, and just make their overall city a safer place. But I was also able to learn new technologies, like drone technologies that are coming out. I had the opportunity to talk to members of the U.S. Congress to talk about housing and how important it is to ensure that everyone can afford housing. So those were some of the things we were able to take away. New technologies are always on the forefront. So, and being able to advocate for things that mayors need. The collective thing we have is when we get together, we're able to talk about those shared experiences and challenges, and then amplify those through resolutions that go up to the federal level. Because at the end of the day, federal policy is happening, but the rubber hits the road in our cities, right? On Front Street and on Main Street. So we were able to put together a list of approved resolutions. Several of those I had the ability to co-sponsor on, and be able to send those to members of the House and the Senate to really advocate for what our cities need.
Yeah. Do you get the chance to brag about your weather?
I don't know. I was in Tampa, so boy, it was hot. It's been quite steamy, but people are like, "What are you? You're in Atlanta area. You got to be used to this."
Very good, Mayor Owens. Really appreciate you joining us today, and appreciate your insight on this.
Oh, happy to be here. Thanks for having me,
All right, take care. Have a good day.
All right, bye.
All right, folks, don't go anywhere. We got much more for you coming up right after the break. All right, welcome back to the show. Global tensions are rising after President Donald Trump ordered strikes on Iranian nuclear sites over the weekend, plunging the region into new phases of this conflict. Joining us now is NBC Washington correspondent Alice Barr, who's been covering politics for years now. And Alice, you have some new information on some new attacks on Iran this morning.
Chesley, good morning. Yeah, Israel has now been striking the Fordo nuclear site. That's that deep underground, highly secretive and critical Iranian nuclear enrichment site. That was one of 3 targets that the U.S. hit over the weekend in these new strikes. So Israel going back to try to keep targeting that site now that those bunker-busting bombs that the U.S. dropped that were designed to burrow underground and then explode, perhaps the thinking being that some amount of damage having been opened up, that gives a window for Israel to come in and access that site with more traditional kinds of missiles that they've been using.
Let's go back to those bunker-busting bombs, right? It seemed like we got a mixed message this week as President Trump was calling those strikes a spectacular success, where the Pentagon is saying it's too soon to know. What are we hearing about the true impacts?
Right. This is an important question because President Trump has said that Iran's nuclear facilities have been totally and completely obliterated. The Pentagon says it's too soon to tell exactly if that's the case and that they're still assessing the damage. And some Trump administration officials, including Vice President J.D. Vance, seem to acknowledge that they're not entirely certain about the whereabouts of the actual enriched uranium stockpile, that there seems to be some speculation that that material could have been moved because Iran sort of believed that this might be coming and may have moved some of that material before the strikes. But what Vice President Vance said is that even if they have material, they don't have the facilities anymore to actually turn that enriched uranium into a nuclear weapon, which is, of course, at the heart of this and what all of the efforts have been by both Israel and now the U.S. to prevent Iran having a nuclear weapon.
Alice, everybody wants to know if we're going to get a response from Iran, and what would that retaliation look like?
So Iran has said that it reserves all options, and Iran's supreme leader said last week before the strikes that any direct U.S. military intervention would lead to irreparable damage. So there's been signaling that something could be coming. We do know that the Department of Homeland Security put out an alert, a heightened security alert, saying that there is a heightened threat inside the U.S. from Iran after Iran threatened to activate sleeper cell terror inside this country if attacked, according to 2 U.S. officials and a person with knowledge of the threat. That information came about before the strikes. The Trump administration is promising increased surveillance. There's also the possibility that U.S. military bases in the Middle East, particularly in Iraq, there's some question about could be targeted. And so there's an effort to harden security at those sites. And President Trump has been clear that any targeting of U.S. troops would be a red line, would have, he has said, would have much more serious response than what we've seen so far. Also the possibility of cyber threats and then of economic fallout. Iran could potentially close the Strait of Hormuz, which is the busiest oil shipping channel in the world, and that could have some really serious impact on oil and gas prices and on various sectors around the world that rely on that kind of industry.
All right, Alice, thanks so much for keeping us in tune with this. Certainly we'll be checking back in with you soon to find out more on what's taking place. Thanks so much. All right, folks, don't go anywhere. We got plenty more stories for you coming up. This is The Take. Welcome back to the show. Changes are coming later this week through an agency within the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Moving forward, there will no longer be a research requirement for transplanting kidneys and livers from donors with HIV to recipients with HIV. Joining us now is Nina Martinez. In 2019, she became the first person ever living in the United States with HIV to donate a kidney to another HIV-positive person. Welcome to the show, Nina.
Thank you so much for having me, Chesley.
All right, walk us through the process of the donation when you did it, and how big of an ordeal was it?
Well, every person with HIV, just like a donor without HIV, has to pass a standard medical evaluation. So that part was pretty much the same. And then the original legislation, which is the HIV Organ Policy Equity Act of 2013 that allowed these transplants, put in place a few more requirements for people with HIV, specifically under research, so that we could show people that these transplants were safe and effective, transplanting these organs from donors with HIV to recipients with HIV. So that whole screening process and evaluation for me took 8.5 months. And then in March of 2019, I was able to donate my kidney.
So talk to me, how would these changes have impacted you if you were to donate now under these new conditions?
So what the changes that are coming this week do is say that we have enough data from the more than 500 transplants that have taken place in this country under research protocols. We know that these transplants are safe and effective for recipients with HIV and end-stage kidney and liver disease. It pretty much removes the research requirements, and so not every transplant center was approved to do the research. There are 250 centers in this country, and only about 30 or so were approved to do the research. I couldn't donate here locally in Atlanta as a living donor. There is a transplant center here that handles deceased donors with HIV, but I'm very much alive. And so because of the fact that I couldn't donate here locally, I had to go to Baltimore 10 times to be evaluated, to participate in their research protocol, to pass the standard donor evaluation, and to do the required follow-up that allowed us to collect the data and show that the transplant worked. And now people with HIV do not have to participate in research. It means that they can be evaluated just like a living or deceased donor if people choose to register to donate upon death, that they don't have to have these extra research requirements that had been pretty cumbersome and prevented full implementation of the HOPE Act.
Nina, can you lay out what positive and negatives are tied to this move?
The positives is that having more donors shortens the wait list for everyone. So while people tend to believe that these changes only benefit people with HIV, the fact is that people who are living with HIV and not living with HIV share the same transplant wait list. So shortening the wait list helps everybody waiting. So when I donated, not only did I help my recipient living with HIV, but he came off the list, which meant that the next available deceased donor HIV negative organ could go to the next person waiting.
So how do you respond to people who have ethical concerns about this?
The research was ethically conducted. You had to have an institutional research board to approve these studies, and moving out into standard practice, what we're saying is that, again, you have a standard evaluation. People have to, as a donor in a regular standard evaluation, you have to say that I agree to this medical decision I'm making for myself. And on the recipient side, they're informed that their donor has HIV, and they're asked, are you sure? They're asked during this informed consent process before transplant, and the new policies do a double verification of the recipient's HIV status and their willingness to accept an organ from a donor who has HIV. So all of the ethical considerations have been pretty much worked out since the 2013 legislation. We've done the work, we've done the science, and now we're ready for full implementation to benefit people with HIV who historically didn't have access to transplantation. They'll have expanded access. They've always been able to elect a donor who does not have HIV. But as I like to say, there's more kidneys for more open-minded people.
Mm-hmm. All right, Nina Martinez, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Plenty more stories for you coming up. Plus, a lot of Americans feel like they don't have enough money to live. What's behind this? We'll talk about it coming up. Do you have enough money to live comfortably? Now, most people are going to say no to that, right? Everybody could use a little bit more. But thanks to the high prices, tariffs, and economic uncertainty, a mass majority of Americans say no. Not surprising, right? A new study found by Bankrate found that 23% of Americans feel financially secure, while another 32% say they're not secure and never feel like they will be. As for how much people need to be secure, close to half put it at about $100,000 a year. By comparison, the average full-time worker made roughly $81,000 a year in 2023. Here now is friend of the show, financial expert, I call him expert, Andrew Pulos. Welcome back to the show, my friend.
Good morning, Chesley. How are you?
All right, doing pretty good. There's a lot of uncertainty in the world right now, especially when it comes to our finances. Is that the reason for this gloom in this survey?
Yeah, well, if you look overall, it certainly does not look good based on this survey. I think just Americans do not feel comfortable with how much they earn, but also how much they have left, really. I often say it's not what you earn, it's what you can save, right? And if you can't save and you're financially challenged, you're never going to feel secure.
Are we living just above our means? Is that what it is? Like that figure that you heard me talk about, $100,000 a year, is that right on target, or is that just, high hopes?
Look, I deal with all kinds of clientele, right, in my profession. So I see folks who live above their means. I see folks who are just basically barely surviving and trying to struggle. You can make $300,000 a year. The average person would say, hey, I'll take that and I'll feel financially secure. And that person could be living above their means if they're living in a house that's an $800,000 or $900,000 mortgage, if their property taxes are $20,000, $30,000 a year, right? So ultimately, I think, yes, some of us may be living above our means. The lifestyle inflation is what we call it, right? We have the real inflation versus the lifestyle inflation. One thing that, as a society, that we often do is when we begin to earn more and sort of move up in life, right? The status quo, then we like to spend more. We feel like we can splurge, but the splurging never stops. So, and that really kind of sometimes creates part of our challenges. What would you say is a realistic target for a household here in Atlanta? Look, I think you're probably getting by if a household is making about $150 to $175. Because, while that sounds like a lot of money, you got to factor also the tax man. He's going to get his cut right off the top, right? So by the time you factor in taxes, federal, state, Social Security, Medicare, you're probably losing somewhere around a third of your money, if not a third, maybe about 25 to 30%, give or take. So you got to factor in for that. If you're probably a household, and it depends also how big the household is. Is it a household of just a husband and a wife, for example, two spouses? Do they have 2 children? Do they have 4 children, right? The more children you have, obviously, life gets more expensive. Then you got to factor if they're younger children, daycare. So there's a lot to be said. So a single person making $150 might live more comfortably than a household of 4 or 5.
There is people in the study that said they'll probably never reach, feeling secure in their making of money. How do you advise your clients when they feel like they've fallen behind or they consistently can't make it to where they need to be?
Yeah, I tell them that something's got to change, right? First, I always recommend this is the perfect time, summertime, so mid-year financial wellness, right? Check and see how things are going. What debts do you have? What could be paid off? What's short-term debt versus long-term debt? Are you in debt with credit cards that could be perhaps rapidly paid off? Or do you have more long-term debt at lower interest rates? Then you also have to see pretty much what's going on. So do a wellness check. If you're the type of household where you're making $150,000, for example, and you're taking 2-3 summer vacations, that's probably biting into your budget. So you need to see where you can kind of cut back a little bit, perhaps, and use that money allocated somewhere else. So you're basically shifting money around. But just turning a blind eye and putting your head in the sand, so to speak, and never dealing with the problem is not going to get you anywhere.
So you sacrifice some of those vacations for those nice suits.
Yeah, the suit, the pocket square, the tie. Just I got to keep up with you. So it's a challenge, man. Look, I love that tie you're wearing today. That's a fabulous color. So I got to go shopping, and you're gonna run me broke here.
No. I'm telling you, I know you got some in the closet that you keep on the side that you're trying to get rid of. Come, hook me up, man. Hook me up.
Look, man, I need your fashion designer.
My friend, take care. Thanks so much for joining us today.
We'll chat soon.
All right, folks. You're watching The Take. Hey, don't go anywhere. You probably have seen these driverless cars around Atlanta metro area lately, but how soon will they become the norm? We'll talk about it coming up next. Self-driving cars in Atlanta, it's not the future. It's right now. Autonomous vehicles are already on roads here in the city. Whether you're going to hop in one or not is your choice, but if you're going to be driving, you're certainly going to be sharing the road with one. 11Alive consumer investigator Liza Lucas is tracking the rollout. And Liza, you've been, if you've been in Buckhead, Midtown lately, you've probably seen these cars already. What do drivers need to know?
Good morning, Chesley. I know you've seen them around the station. They're certainly active over here, particularly when we talk about Waymo, right? And Waymo is already taking in those early riders here in Atlanta with plans to fully launch to the public this summer in partnership with Uber. But here's the difference here, the key difference. These ride shares do not have drivers, not even safety operators, as some companies have had during rollouts. And that means Atlanta drivers are now navigating alongside fully autonomous cars in real traffic, real weather, real chaos, as we know. Here we are in Atlanta. Now the question is, are we ready for that? So I took that question to Georgia Tech's Dr. Srinivas Pita, who studies exactly how drivers and AI systems interact on the road. Take a listen.
We primarily are interested in how humans interact with changes that are taking place because they're used to driving by themselves. So for the past, I would say, century, we have been used to humans being in control of the driving, and now they have to cede control to machines. And so that transition is part of where we need to understand how we can do that harmoniously.
So Dr. Pita and I talked quite a lot about this, and he says Atlanta's driving culture could create some real tests for the autonomous vehicles, from aggressive merges to unpredictable weather. We've got those afternoon thunderstorms you tell us about all the time. And of course, gridlock. His lab is going to be watching closely to see how these drivers and AVs adjust to each other on the road, Chesley.
Yeah, you talk about weather. I'm thinking about snow and ice, right, when we get to that point, right? But
yeah, I got a point about that.
We're still a little bit further away from that. So does this really change how drivers approach driving every day in traffic?
Well, it does, because harken back to the days you first got behind the wheel and you learned certain rules. You may have kind of veered off for some of those rules since then, right, Chesley? But these autonomous vehicles, they are also learning the same rules. For instance, keeping a dedicated distance between cars in traffic. So while we might adjust if we're in gridlock or kind of merging on certain parts of the interstate, these vehicles are designed to still keep that safe distance in mind. So we could see some tension there, or maybe even some bullying from aggressive drivers. We're just going to have to watch and wait and see as people out there on the road get more comfortable here in Atlanta. But that's one thing Dr. Pita and his team are going to be watching.
So we're looking at a learning curve, right?
Exactly. And really, time's going to tell. Dr. Pita had a great metaphor. He compared it to, think about when we first had planes in the sky, how new that technology was. That's really the frontier we're looking at now. And he suspects, by all intensive purposes, that people are really going to adjust to this, whether you're choosing to ride in these autonomous ride shares or you're navigating with them on the road. He thinks time will continue to, we'll all continue to evolve and learn together.
Yeah, I think one of the problems will be just looking at it. Like you're driving down the road, you just want to look at it.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I've seen him a million times and do that.
Have you ever heard of anything directly from Waymo? Waymo about how they're preparing to roll it out in Atlanta?
Yeah, we've been talking back and forth about this. I know that the company has been in touch with DOT quite a bit and will continue to be in touch with public safety officials, also firefighters and other types of first responders, police, so they know how to respond to the vehicles as well. Actually, APD had a social post about how they were getting trained on this too. So we're in communication, and of course we'll be watching that public rollout. I talked to another early rider as well who had great things to say about the technology and her particular ride. She was really excited to be on the cusp of that. And Dr. Pita says some people are going to be head first, ready to jump in and test this new technology. Some people may wait and see for a while, and then some are probably going to need some convincing.
All right, last question, Liza. Would you take a ride in one?
I actually have. I took one in Arizona, which was a lot slower moving than Atlanta. So I still have a little bit of reluctance. I'm not going to be getting on the interstate in one anytime soon, but I hope to do have a ride along.
Very good. Very good. Thanks a lot, Liza. Appreciate it. You can watch Liza's full story tonight on 11 Alive News at 6 and right here on 11 Alive Plus. And if you have a tip that you want us to investigate, our team will investigate it for you. You can call Liza at 404-873-9111. Again, it's 404-873-9111. Or email her at investigates@11alive.com. All right. Can't wait for that. All right, the prosecution in the Sean Combs sex trial is now poised to wrap up its case as early as today. On Friday, a former assistant to the rap mogul admitted under oath that he obtained drugs from Combs and set up alleged sex marathons. The defense is expected to start presenting its case this week, likely focusing on challenging the credibility of the witness and contrary evidence. Closing arguments could arrive by week's end, moving the trial closer to a final judgment there. Back with us now, as he has been through this trial and given us great insight, is a defense attorney and friend of the show, Daryl Cohen. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me, Chesney. It's great to be here.
All right, hey man, you've been giving us some good stuff, some really good stuff. So we expect nothing less today. Prosecutors will wrap up its long list of witnesses. Does this large number of witnesses also always make a case stronger, or can it backfire on for the government?
It's Yogi Berra once said, "It ain't over till it's over." So I believe it's over, but it could backfire. So what is the defense going to do? They're going to say that we have one witness, the last witness. Not only is he not telling the truth, but it's no big deal. He testified under immunity. They can't even go get him. The feds have got to leave him alone. No prosecution for him. He has no reason to tell the truth. The other thing they're going to say is, this is the music business. No one did this because they were forced to. No one did. I don't care what the testimony was. This is the way it is. Everything goes in the music business. This is just part of it. It's not your lifestyle, ladies and gentlemen, but it's ours. And we don't hurt anybody. It's just the way it is. Wow. I think that is going to have to be what they're going to do. They'll bring a few witnesses in all likelihood to say, John Puff Daddy Combs is a good guy. He may be over the top, but he's not anything other than a good guy. That's my view.
Gotcha. We've heard the jurors having to look at this explicit video evidence. What's going to be the strategy from the defense on how they change or how they have the jurors interpret that material?
Well, obviously the defense can't stop the jury from having seen it. So the jury is going to likely be disgusted as a regular, normal human being here in the United States. But this is not what it's about, folks, says the defense. It's about our lifestyle, my client's lifestyle. It's not you, it's us, and we didn't hurt anybody. It may be disgusting, it may be something you would never even conceive of in your wildest bad dream, but on the other hand, it's what we do. Take a look at Hollywood, take a look at the record business. It's always been that way, and it always will be. That will be their take. I don't think it's going to work.
There's been some talk that the defense may lean to a short and sharp, lean defense presentation. Is that something that would be effective, you think?
Well, I think they've got to put something up. They've got to do something to take the prosecution's case away from the jury's eyes and ears and mostly their mind. So by putting up a few people that are good people, that have a good or a stellar reputation in the music business, they could try to divert the jury's attention. But truthfully, this has been a long freight train. I used to have a teacher who used to say, the people keep a coming, but the train done gone. This train is gone. It is gone from the station.
All right, so we know how you feel about this, right? So what's going to be the key elements for both sides to drive home a win on either side?
From the prosecution, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you have heard every scintilla of evidence that we have brought before you. Mm-hmm. You can see what has happened. You can see the crimes that have taken place, the coercion, the frighteningness, and how frightened Cassie was. You've seen and heard the testimony of every witness, including the final witness who testified under immunity because he had to do all of these things. He didn't want to do them, ladies and gentlemen. He was fearful of his career, maybe even his life. So you now go to the other side. Look, I'm a music mogul. My client is truly a music mogul. This is not the type of lifestyle that people are accustomed to outside of the business, but we're not talking outside. We're inside. These are insiders. Cassie was with him for how many years, ladies and gentlemen? She could have walked away at any time. And yes, she filed a civil lawsuit against him. Why? She wanted money. That was all it was about. It was about money. And this other testimony that you've heard from the prosecution is just cumulative. One person after another that is jumping on a bandwagon because they think Diddy is going down. Well, ladies and gentlemen, he's not going down because he didn't do anything wrong. He did something stupid, but nothing wrong.
Gotcha.
That would be
all right. All right, friend of the show, Attorney Daryl Cohen, really appreciate your insight, man. It's been great, and hopefully we'll get another one in.
You'll see. Thank you. Have a great day.
All right, take care. Folks, we got plenty more stories for you. This is The Take. We'll be back right after this. All right, oil prices are climbing after U.S. military strikes on Iran's military strikes sites over the weekend. CNN's Maribel Aber is joining us now from the NASDAQ market site in New York. Good morning, Maribel. And looking like this conflict could ripple into the gas pumps, right? The price we pay.
Hey, good morning. Chesley, you know what, that is a distinct possibility. And for right now, though the oil market is in sort of a wait-and-see mode following the U.S. bombings of Iran's nuclear sites. So if Iran were to attempt to close the Strait of Hormuz, oil prices could soar near $100 a barrel. That's according to analysts. And of course, as oil goes up, gas follows along close behind it. That strait is a critical passageway. It's got about 20 million barrels of oil a day passing through it, roughly 20% of global consumption, according to the Energy Information Administration. A move to close the strait is considered a worst-case scenario for the oil markets, according to analysts. Iranian state media reports that the country's parliament had backed the closing of the waterway, but the final decision rests with Iran's National Security Council, according to the report. Right now, the U.S. benchmark West Texas Intermediate crude is it's up about almost 0.5%. Chesley, $74.14 a barrel.
All right. Over the weekend, we learned of the passing of a shipping icon that comes with a direct Atlanta sports tie.
Fred Smith, the founder of FedEx and the man who revolutionized package delivery, has died. Smith came up with the idea for a nationwide overnight delivery system as part of an economics paper while at Yale University in 1965. After serving 2 tours as a Marine in Vietnam and being awarded 2 Purple Hearts, among other honors, Smith returned to the U.S., started the company. FedEx grew from having a couple hundred packages his first night into a shipping giant with more than 500,000 employees and annual revenue around $90 billion today. Now, Smith also has had those deep ties to the NFL. His son Arthur was the former coach of the Atlanta Falcons. He's presently the offensive coordinator of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Fred Smith was a part owner of the Washington NFL franchise from 2003 until 2021. As for that economics paper at Yale, that spelled out Smith's idea for a shipping company. It received a C. Fred Smith was 80 years old. Chesley, it just goes to show you, believe in yourself. Even when nobody else does, they might not understand your genius.
That's absolutely right. Absolutely right. What can you tell us about this massive data leak hitting billions of stolen passwords and logins?
They exposed more than 16 billion passwords, Chesley, login credentials from everything from Google, Facebook, Apple. Countless other services are affected. So website Cyber News reported the breach, saying records from more than 30 databases were stolen. Each has up to 3.5 billion passwords, from social media and VPN logins to corporate platforms. So the theft puts users at risk of everything from phishing attacks to identity theft. Cybersecurity experts say the best way to keep your account secure is to enable two-factor authentication. Change passwords if your account was exposed. Chesley, that two-factor system requires a second form of authentication through an app, phone, passcode, or physical USB key. Those will need to be approved by you for access.
Gotcha. All right. Finally, Krispy Kreme rolling out a sweet surprise today, and you don't need to buy anything to get it?
Free, just in time for July 4th. Krispy Kreme is a giveaway. The chain celebrating the 4th of July with free donuts and a new collection of treats. The 3 new donuts are called the Freedom Ring, the Vanilla Cookies and Cream Liberty Crunch, and USA Party Donut. They're all part of Krispy Kreme's Star Stripes and Sweetness collection. And talk about eye-catching. That Freedom Ring donut features an original glazed donut dipped in white icing, blue sprinkles, white stars, piped with red icing stripes. And as for those free donuts, anyone wearing red, white, and blue on July 4th can pick up an original glazed donut free of charge at participating Krispy Kreme locations. Chesley, for me, it's chocolate glazed donut all day. Keep it simple. 240 calories for chocolate, 190 for regular.
Maribel, do you wait for the hot light to be on before you get yours?
No.
Oh.
It's always, I'm always ready. Let's go.
Okay. I'm scared of you. Thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
You got it.
All right. All right, folks, don't go anywhere. We got much more for you coming up right after the break. Well, we've had a lot of storms in the area lately. Summer storms, of course, will continue to hit our area. Got broken branches, uprooted trees, and a lot of damage left in the wake of those storms. So with many trees, I don't know if you know this or not, but oftentimes a tree struck by lightning doesn't show visible signs. How do you know if one is about to fall on your house? Definitely want to check that out, right? With us now is tree expert Aaron Ehrman. He is a tree expert for us. Welcome to the show, Mr. Aaron.
Good morning. How you doing today?
Hey, we're doing pretty good, but we want to know about these trees, right? We've had our fair share of damage from these storms that have been rolling through. What can people do right now that there's no storms around, to find out if their trees are stressed, or how can they help them recover?
Yeah, there's a number of different ways to kind of see how healthy or unhealthy a tree is. I kind of look at a tree in 3 different sections. You want to look at the leaves, you want to look at the bark or the main trunk of the tree, and you want to look at the roots. First, with the leaves, you want to look at the leaves, see if there's any unusual spotting or any browning of the leaves. You want to look at the leaves to see if there's any large bare patches or leaves coming down out of season. And then you look at the bark conditions, the trunk. Is there any cracked or peeling bark? Is there any rotten branches, those types of things. And then finally, you want to look at the roots. You want to look at, is there any kind of mushrooms, is there any kind of moss? Because usually that's an indicator that there's an issue going on with the health of the tree. And then is there any exposed roots? How do the roots look? Do they look dead? Are they exposed? Those types of things. So those are kind of the 3 sections you want to look at, to see what the health of the tree is.
Is there anything that can help it? Like if you look at your tree and you kind of see some of those things, is there anything that you can help to keep it, or at that point is it over?
Yeah, no, a lot of times what we always say is if you're unsure of the health of the tree, have an expert come out, have an arborist come out, have someone come out and evaluate it, because there's so many issues that can go on with a tree, that you really do want to have an expert come out and evaluate that tree and to see if you can do things like mulch, making sure that you're having enough water, enough sun. There may be issues with the soil, those types of things. Making sure that again it gets lots of water, lots of sun when they're during the dry seasons.
Yeah.
So there's a number of different things, but you definitely want to, if you're unsure, have an expert come out and look at it. So.
Yeah, we hear a lot of people doing these things called a scratch test on tree bark. Is that a reliable test, or should we just have
again, you probably want to have an expert kind of look at it. If you see the bark kind of dying, or if you see the bark kind of peeling off the actual tree itself, it's not a good indicator of the health of the tree. It's showing that it's starting to rot. So again, kind of the key is to have someone come out and look at it. So
you're probably going to answer this the same way, but people will say that half the tree looks alive, half the tree looks dead. Is that a done situation?
A lot of times it is, but again, have an expert come out and look at those types of things, because yeah, I mean, if you see any kind of rotting parts of the tree, it's usually not a good indicator. A lot of times you'll see a rotten section here, but then it looks healthy here. Yeah. But a lot of times, unfortunately, you can't save that tree after a while. But again, key is really to have someone come out and look at it, because every tree is completely different. So.
Gotcha. All right. So here's personally, I have a tree right in my front yard, right, that has exposed roots. Now it's been there for a while. The tree looks healthy. It's doing fine. But is that something that I need to be concerned about, pay really close attention to, or try to help save?
I would have it maybe evaluated every year, just kind of have someone look at it. Exposed roots doesn't necessarily mean that the tree is unhealthy, especially if you see a lot of the rest of the tree, being fine. But I would say if you do have some exposed roots, maybe have someone look at it maybe every year, just to ensure. Because again, these trees, especially with the storms that we've had lately, a lot of trees kind of tumbling over. Branches coming down, the wind. I mean, we've had some really nasty storms and a lot of trees coming down. Yeah. Especially this year. So,
is there? You said trees are different. So, is there one particular tree that we need to be looking out for over another? Is it like pines, if they're leaning, that kind of thing? Is that something? Go ahead.
Any tree that's basically leaning more than 15%.
Okay.
You definitely want to have that tree looked at, especially with a lot of the root systems. If it's leaning more than 15%, that tree can come down. And obviously, you don't want a tree coming down, especially on your house or that sort of on your property. So anything that's 15% or more that's leaning, you definitely want to have that looked at.
Yeah. And when you don't know, have an expert come out. Isn't that right?
That's really the key. That's really the key. So yeah.
Aaron, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate you.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks so much for your time.
All right, take care now. All right, folks, don't go anywhere. My final take is coming up after the break. Heat, and more heat, folks. Yep, we have an 11Alive weather impact alert for Tuesday through Friday, where we're going to see the actual air temperature hit the upper 90s. You factor in that humidity, it's going to feel like the 100s out there, so take the necessary precautions, meaning take breaks and hydrate yourself, folks. We can't stress that enough. We will get some afternoon scattered thunderstorms in here, which will suppress that heat as we head toward the end of the week and into the weekend, looking at 91 degrees both Saturday and Sunday with a 30 to 40% chance for scattered showers and thunderstorms, mainly during the afternoon. All right, before we go, my final take. There's a new movie called The Materialist that's shedding some light on issues that men suffer from in silence. We're talking about height. Yeah, the movie talks about height extension surgery, which doctors are saying they do more often than you think. One doctor performing more than 25,000 limb lengthening surgeries over the course of his 38-year career. The surgeries, once more common with people who suffer from imbalances in their body, like one leg shorter than the other, are taking off. In fact, they cost roughly about $80,000 to $200,000, 5 months of recovery plus physical therapy, and you get about 6 inches higher. But is it worth it? Is it really worth it? Certainly it's going to add some value to the dating scene, maybe give you a little bit more confidence, but it's only about 6 inches higher. And is that going to make the relationship really work? I don't buy it, folks. I'd love to hear what you have to think about it. Doing bad things to our bodies. That's all we have for you today. Make sure you make it a great day, folks, and encourage someone to appreciate their height.